Okay, so this is my last video concluding my series on the revolutionary power of regenerative agriculture. Basically, over the past 4 videos, I kind of discussed broadly what regenerative agriculture is, for those of you that might be new to it, how it differs from our current conventional agricultural paradigm that we exist within, and how it could be part of a broader social revolution that I think is dearly needed in society right now. Um, I'm recording this on February 28th, after we just got the news of our attack on Iran early this morning. They've confirmed that Khomeini, the supreme leader of Iran, has been killed. And I, in no way, shape, or form, support this war. It's yet again another lie of the Trump administration, another massive reason why I regret voting for him. As I discussed in my initial series of videos, he spent his entire campaign talking about being the anti-war candidate, and we were all fooled, myself included, completely to believe him. It's a complete lie in every way, shape, and form. All he's done is promote more war over the last year he's been in office. And so that makes this message of revolutionary change, I think, more dire than ever. And I really do truly believe that agriculture could play a major role in it, and that it is more primed than any other aspect of our society to be ready for it. Despite the fact that most farmers are conservative and probably Trump supporters, I think that there are ways to get through to them. As you know, I'm a perfect example of it myself. I come from that exact mindset, that exact region in the Midwest, that cultural paradigm. And I was able to do it, to turn the other leaf and realize what's happening. So I do have hope, but today is definitely a hard day to see what's happening. I'll save my thoughts for that in another video. I don't intend this channel to be like a day-to-day political analysis. There's plenty of people that do that already much better than I ever could. But my hope is really to talk about how we can set our society on the right path, because we're at a fork in the road right now very clearly. And the choices, as I see them, on one side are techno-fascist surveillance state led by a handful of trillionaire oligarchs that control every aspect of society, and the other fork being a true anti-authoritarian, egalitarian, maybe anarchist, maybe communist, maybe socialist, whatever word you want to use, world where people actually live in unity with each other, where profit is not the number one moral that we set our society and its institutions around achieving, where all thoughts and races and religions and ways of thinking and types of people are respected. Yeah, that's really, and I'm very new to this, right? I mean, I obviously just made a series of videos talking about how I'm a former Trump voter, even as recent as 2024. So I'm still learning about what that future world vision could be as I go down kind of the rabbit hole on this side. But it just seems clear to me that whatever ism you want to use to describe it, we have to achieve the goal of wresting power away from the few and putting it back in the hands of the many in all aspects of society. So that's what I think I want to close with on this series of videos, is talking about how I think regenerative agriculture can play a major role in that. So as I mentioned, I went through kind of my 3 reasons: ethics, ecology, economy. Those are kind of the core components I see that regenerative agriculture has a chance to correct in our food system, and that also match up with dearly needed changes we need across broader aspects of society. So I want to talk in this specific video about how to become the change, right? And what I'm doing personally, because I think that's what I really want the ethos of this channel to reflect is how can we come together to create positive change? And it's going to take all of us, and we all have certain strengths. We all have certain networks and connections and people we know. And I just want to talk about mine. Maybe this will get you thinking on what your network is and what your potential is to be part of the positive change. What I want to kind of talk about is getting into the changes that I'm specifically trying to make, and hopefully inspire other people to take the same course if it's possible. So for me personally, I started my own farm back at the beginning of last year, a small regenerative farm on my family's land back in southern Indiana, raising 100% grass-fed lambs, doing rotational grazing, and following the fundamentals of principles of regenerative agriculture. This year we're looking to expand into beef and some more things. That's a long-term project. That's another, a video to kind of explain the technical details. But that was a big step for me personally, right? Was coming to terms with the fact that I was not finding, number one, fulfillment in my corporate conventional ag career, which I'd done for 15 years across various geographies and companies and aspects of conventional agriculture. Not only personal fulfillment, but starting to realize the just negative impact as I saw it that these practices were having on the ecology of the world, as well as the farmers involved in it and the economic impact. Mental health is a huge issue in conventional farming. Suicide rates are very high with farmers. Something needs to change at a very fundamental level in how we grow food in this country and across the world. And so I wanted to, as much as I could, start transitioning to become the change I wanted to see in the world and putting my money where my mouth is, right? I still have a kind of pseudo corporate contracting job to help pay the bills as I build the farm out. But I ended my full-time employment this about 3 or 4 months ago. That was another big factor in my turn away from Trump and kind of conservatism as it is right now in the country. Not that I deny all conservative values, I don't. But like, paying for your own healthcare now is incredibly expensive because I no longer have benefits from me and my wife. And, I took probably overall like a 35% cut in my total pay and benefits package when I made that move. And, the world is not cheap to live in. My mortgage is not cheap, and groceries and everything else you need isn't cheap right now. So it's definitely a move of faith. It's not like the conventional mainstream wisdom choice that we typically sell in America to pursue more money. But it's a choice where I'm trying to put my money where my mouth is and help build the better future that I want to see. And that's what I really want to, create with this channel is, number one, lay out the reasons why we need change, and number two, hopefully inspire people to be part of it in whatever way they can in their own life, right? And we all have our own unique circumstances and things we can and can't do, things we can and can't risk. But I encourage you to just take some time and some introspection into what that would look like for you and how you can start taking steps towards that. And I will say, it has been very exciting, very fulfilling. By no means do we have like a successful, profitable farm established, in 1 year. It's something that's going to take probably several years, a decade or more to start, but you have to start somewhere. And it's something I'm, very motivated. I'm also very privileged because I do have a very supportive family. I'm working on land that I will inherit one day, that's already paid off and it's been around my family for 120 years. So obviously most people do not have that situation. So I recognize too, like, I'm in a very unique situation, but that actually kind of brings me to another point that I think about on this, which is like those of us who are in that situation, like myself, are even more so morally obligated to take the steps needed in our personal life to make society better. I am privileged. I do have a good financial situation that allowed me to take this risk. I do have the resources and people that support me. And, you know, it took me a while to wrap my mind around it and wrap my mind around the change and what I wanted to see and what I wanted to do. But now I am taking the actions. And so I encourage you to see whatever way you can do that in your life, right? Um, and every act counts, no matter what it is. Don't let anybody discourage you on that. And we all, none of us are perfect. None of us have the perfect ideology or thoughts about the world or the way it should be, but putting effort into action, into change, in itself is a revolutionary act, especially in the world right now. So my kind of vision that I see, right, I think I've talked about it in my last series of videos and a little bit in this one, right, is a world where we have decentralized power. Um, the majority of the world's wealth, land, resources, um, and power lay in the hands of a very small group of people right now. And we need to reverse that trend as much as possible to distribute wealth, power, influence, land, resources across as many people as possible, right? Um, and again, there's all kinds of different isms that go into that conversation. I'm not going to say that I'm an expert on all of them or which one is the best, but that simple fact seems very clear to me, that we have to start this process or else the world is going to get very, very bad very quickly. The reason I want this decentralized world is I think this actually creates a more resilient system and a more powerful system for the future for all of us. Right? Like a system where you have more and more power, wealth, and influence in the hands of a few people is inherently fragile and brittle. And we see that reflected in nature with the way that monocropping works, right? The way that forests, like I'm in Colorado right now, there's forests in Colorado where one species of pine tree dominates an entire mountainside, and there's no undergrowth, there's no fungal network, there's no diversity, right? And those are poor ecosystems. And so we can see the reflection in nature, in ourselves as well, right? When one culture dominates in the human world, it causes massive wide-scale suffering. And when one species of plant or animal dominates in nature, it does the same. Diversity is essential, because no one has the right answers. Nobody has a monopoly on truth or on what is the good life. We all have a piece of that across our various religions and ethnicities and races and nations. And one thing I want to be very clear on, is that in no way, shape, or form is any of this a indictment of the character of conventional farmers, right? Like I recognize they are trapped in a system with bad incentives that forces them to make bad choices. And the suicide rate and mental health decline that we've seen in conventional farming speaks to that perfectly, and the decline in their economic opportunities. So my dream is to basically take my knowledge of agriculture that I've had over my career and the network I've built and the people I know and be able to make this farm that I'm trying to build successful so that one day I can help conventional farmers transition to this regenerative type of farming on their own farm, and then scale that through the already existing cooperative infrastructure that exists in agriculture, which I talked about in my video on economy. It is a very unique aspect of the agricultural industry that it is heavily adopted with cooperatives, which is fantastic. Because if we can start the grassroots movement with conventional farmers and get them to change to this new system, we already have the structures in place to guarantee that the power stays in their hands and doesn't go to the hands of corporations and shareholders and the few oligarchs that control so many other aspects of society. Cooperatives keep the power and the money and the influence in the hands of the local community and the local farmers who are member owners of that cooperative. And so that's something very special that gives me a lot of hope for this change being able to actually work in agriculture. So yeah, that's what I'm going to close with. Just take some time and analyze your own life, your own job, career, family, community situation, meet your neighbors. I mean, that's the simplest thing you can do. The simplest revolutionary act you can do is to meet people in real life, talk to people in your family, in your community, in your neighborhood. I know it can be difficult, especially when there's so much division in the world right now, but that is the secret to ending this, is having the conversations and looking at the ways in your life that you can make those little sacrifices, those little changes in your career or the way you live or the products you buy or the food you buy, to start opting out voluntarily from our consolidated capitalist, corporate controlled, oligarch controlled system. What are the ways that you can do that? I think food's a great way. Like obviously not everyone has access to a local farmer, but if you do, I definitely encourage you to Google them, go check out their farm, see what products they offer, what you can afford in your budget. And one thing that's kind of a theory of mine, which you can kind of test out for yourself, is that the more nutrient dense a given calorie of food is, the less of it you need to eat to be satiated and healthy. So even though regenerative food is objectively right now more expensive, and there's a lot of reasons for that, I would say it's because it reflects the true cost of food production. It's not massively subsidized like conventional ag, but instead of spending X amount of money on a large amount of poor quality food, you could spend that same X amount on a smaller quantity of high quality food and still feed yourself in a satiating and healthy way. So I encourage you to look into that, to see how you can make those changes, and especially call this out to people like myself who are privileged, who do have like the well-paying corporate jobs, who are financially capable of doing this. If you are in that position, again, I'll stress, I think you are more morally obligated than people who are in riskier positions to take those steps. We need you more than anyone because you actually have, not more than anyone, right? I mean, we need everyone, but you actually do have the chance to start now with making those changes and influences and sacrificing some other things that may not be as important, like material possessions and trips and travel and stuff like that, for investing in a better society for everyone and not just focusing on attaining more for yourself. And I say that totally non-judgmentally because I'm in the midst of that transition myself, but that's what I want to kind of sign off with. And we'll be back again with some more videos in the future where I really want to explore what are examples we can look at throughout history and now of societies that are built like this in this decentralized way without powerful institutions where local communities and people have the power. Thanks.